My name is Cheryl Dorsey. I'm currently an author. I wrote an autobiography about my journey on the Los Angeles Police Department called The Creation of a Manifesto, Black and Blue. I joined the Los Angeles Police Department in 1980 and I retired in 2000 as a police sergeant.
Okay, in light of this situation that recently happened, what's your take on it? What's your viewpoint?
Which situation are you speaking
The
of?
arrest,
Beverly Hills?
Yes.
Here's what I know. I know that officers will create a situation to justify something that is unjustifiable. And I think it's outrageous that they would have this man sit on the curb or sit in a police station for 6 hours not knowing whether or not he was factually involved in a crime. That's something that they could have deduced very easily. And I think but for him looking like he did, that would not have occurred.
What do you mean when you say they create circumstances? That's what I'd like to know about.
What happens is an officer has to have probable cause to believe that a crime occurred in order to detain you. And oftentimes, officers will stop an individual and sometimes even create an environment where it becomes physical, and now they have to justify that action. And so if there's no probable cause, which means a reasonable suspicion to believe that you're involved in criminal activity that just occurred, then that contact is consensual. And so if it's a consensual contact, you get to leave. And most citizens give great deference to police officers, and they do what's asked of them because they respect the uniform and they respect the authority. And I believe had this gentleman in Beverly Hills been a few years dumber and a little bit younger, he probably would have been a little mouthy with the officers. He may have even gotten a little physical because he didn't appreciate being detained. And then he would have found himself involved in an altercation where ultimately he then would have been arrested for battery on a police officer. Because that's the way it goes. Officers create a situation, they escalate the use of force, and then they arrest you for assaulting them. And so I'm thankful that he was wise enough to just sit there, go through that process, and then understand that the way to handle it would be down the road, maybe in writing, maybe with the press, and bring light to this treatment that was really unfair and unjust.
Okay, my next question is, he was detained for 6 hours. Realistically, how long does it take to figure out that you've got the wrong person?
A couple of minutes. I mean, you're out in the field, you've got the witnesses to the alleged crime that are there. They certainly could have done a field identification with the witnesses. You know, saying that he fit the description, which was, I'm understanding, a male black with a bald head, is pretty much every other person. Maybe not every other person in Beverly Hills, but certainly male black with a bald head is a little too generic to detain someone for 6 hours. And so they could have traipsed down there every witness from that bank and had them look at him and identify him or not, and then free him. And if they really wanted to follow up later thinking that maybe he was involved, get his information, get his driver's license, write it down. You know who he is, you're the police department. It's outrageous to think that they would keep him for 6 hours.
Okay, why did they keep him for 6 hours? What's your thoughts on that? What's the reasoning?
I can't really speak to that because I'm not in those officers' heart. I don't know if they're not trained properly. I don't know if they were taking the orders given by a higher ranking police officer. There could be many reasons why they acted the way that they did, and maybe it could have just been a matter of he did something that upset him. I call it contempt of cop. And if you do something that angers a police officer, because we have tremendous authority as a police officer, I can take hours out of your life or I can take days out of your life by booking you in jail on something that I know is going to be a DA reject, but you're going to sit in jail all weekend because you don't have the financial wherewithal to bail out. So we have tremendous power. And they took 6 hours out of that man's life that he will never get back. I don't know what their motives were, but I know there was no justification. Maybe agenda comes to your mind because you're not the police, but for me, what I see in each and every instance, and when I look at the situation with Eric Garner in New York, when I look at Michael Brown in Missouri, when I look at Ezell Ford here in Los Angeles, each of those, in my mind, is a contempt of cop situation. Each of those are situations where a police officer, given his authority, told a suspect to do a thing, and that person challenged that authority. They didn't do it quick enough, or they didn't do it the way that the officer wanted it done. And so there was a price to pay. And in each of those instances, the price was death. And so when officers become personally involved in a traffic stop, in a detention, in an interaction, then the outcome will be something that is much like what we saw in these instances. And so people need to understand that you can't win with a police officer. And so it's best to do what the gentleman in Beverly Hills did, go along and then handle it later on.